It feels like with everything happening lately, CD Projekt Red cannot catch a break, as we have some even more bad news facing the company, and in fact actually kind of a return of some older bad news that seemed like it was dead and behind us, and that is the fact that CD Projekt Red was hacked in the past, information stolen and put online, and as of the past 72 hours or so, that information is starting to come out. So the context for this one is very important, so we have to roll the clock back a couple of months now. In the first couple of weeks of February, CD Projekt Red was hacked. A third-party group got access to a variety of information. You probably remember this text document that was published. Hello CD Projekt Red, you have been especially pawned. We've dumped full copies of the source codes from your Perforce server for Cyberpunk 2077, The Witcher 3, Gwent, and the unreleased version of The Witcher 3, that being the ray tracing version. We've also dumped all of your documents relating to accounting, administration, legal, HR, investor relations, and more. This originally was basically a ransomware attack. They were trying to get CDPR to pay out to this group for them to not leak the information. CDPR didn't comply. They ended up going public with this. We heard about it on Twitter. And shortly thereafter, we actually saw an auction go up online for all of this content. So the hacking group listed all of these materials with the starting bid at $1 million, the buyout price of $7 million. Now, it doesn't actually seem like they got any bids, but a few days later, the auction was closed, which almost made it seem like somebody either bought this out, perhaps a third-party company, or perhaps the auction itself wasn't going super well, so they accepted a bid that was lower than the $1 million offer. We don't really know what happened there. All this happened back in February, and since then, we really haven't heard much about the situation. We heard how it was actually being pretty impactful for a lot of CDPR employees who potentially had a lot of their personal information compromised, but otherwise, none of those personal documents or the source code for Cyberpunk ended up leaking, or at least until recently. Towards the end of April, a dark web-based hacking website announced some changes coming to them. They said, hello, we announced the development of something really cool, a huge platform for independent leaks. We have no rules and bosses. We will publish private products in a single information platform where we will post leaks of successful no-name teams that do not have their own blogs and names. These are not girls who run the ship like rats and change the policy of their resources. These are really strong guys. Another loud leak awaits you within a week. And it looks like as of the past couple of days, a bunch of the CD Projekt Red source code that was taken back in February has actually been uploaded to this new website, with some of these downloads already being available. So some of the things available right now are things like the Witcher 3 RTX version, that next-gen upgrade of the game, the Cyberpunk source code and SDK for the PS4 and PS5, which are actually fully open and available. But the thing is, with that game source code, they actually aren't open to the public. There's a torrent going around right now, so you can download this, but currently with that download, the files are password protected, not giving you full-on open access to them. And we got a new accompanying note that does say, "Sup chooms, we announce a charity fundraising. Who don't believe us can go F himself. Donation rewards are the archive passwords for $10,000 each. And then the passwords based on those donations will go out in this order: Thronebreaker, The Witcher 3, The Witcher 3 RTX version, and finally Cyberpunk. What's inside? Source and assets: Thronebreaker, Witcher 3 Vanilla appears to be the E3 engine, The Witcher 3 Next Gen, Cyberpunk 2077. Then they have an onion link where the passwords will be dropped, although that onion link is not currently active, and then a bunch of ways to actually participate in this. Although later on they do mention that CDPR data, company reports, NDA are shared with media, but they will not be publicly leaked. And reportedly, this entire leak is in accordance with the buyer that they sold to earlier in February in exchange for a discount on the overall buyout price. And it seems like this is in fact legit, as several people have been able to download this torrent and get a peek or a look at some of the files around Cyberpunk. Again, they are just password protected right now, so full-on open access isn't there yet, but seemingly this may be coming in the next couple of days. So that was a lot. So to just give a brief overview, recap what is going on here. Back in February, CDPR was hacked. The hackers gained access to a variety of private files at CDPR, as well as the source code to several games, most notably Cyberpunk 2077. They opened up an auction on an online forum where the bidding started at $1 million. It got no bids, but reportedly someone bought it. Then nothing really happened until a dark web-based hacking website was recently updated, and several of the source codes appeared on that website, along with a note that said, due to the terms of that original buyout in February, they were able to share the source code with others. And although people can download the files right now, they are password protected, which will seemingly be revealed in a couple of days based off this auction. Which, as an aside, actually charging money for this stolen content is definitely not the most popular thing to do, even among some of the hacking groups. And of course, this has the potential to be pretty big. Obviously, that personal information is some of the most vital in a sense, but apparently that will only be shared with media. It's not really clear who in the media media realm would actually report on that, it seems like it'd be a huge violation, but if that's not publicly leaked, that is definitely a good sign. But as far as the Cyberpunk 2077 source code, as that is clearly the most valuable of the bunch, this could be huge as far as modding goes. As community frustration does mount and people are unhappy with the status of the game, things could definitely change. When all this happened back in February, many modders individually and even some of the most popular mod projects creating tools to mod Cyberpunk 2077 did publicly say they would not be using the leaked source code to create mods. Obviously that is extremely illegal, but if these passwords are posted, you have to imagine at least some modders will use this, and we definitely could see some interesting things in the future as a result of it. It'll kind of be a weird situation where you might have some really cool mods for Cyberpunk, but then the methods by which they were created or what was used to create them is of course not good. In addition, actual data mines of that source code could give us a big insight as to what's to come, since we have the original source code. When the source code for other games has leaked, you can find out a lot about the game, the development of it, and even what's next. I think that could be one of the big things here as far as perhaps where some of those expansions are going with Cyberpunk if work did start on them beforehand. So now, of course, as this stands right now, it's very much so a developing story. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days, but I think we are hitting high points with user frustration against CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk due to the state of the game right now, and really we're about to cross 6 months after the game's release. A lot of people expected more progress to have been made at this point, so I wouldn't be shocked if some of those people who were very against using any type of leaked content back in February could perhaps feel a bit differently now. Nobody has outright said this, but it is something interesting to consider. It also is interesting to me that none of the documents are leaking from the company themselves. You have to imagine if there's any damning emails about the development or discourse internally, those would have been pretty interesting things to read and could have shed a lot of light on Cyberpunk's development, which really just kind of seems like one of the things that a hacker group would actually end up leaking. But it'll be interesting to see if any media companies actually potentially get those and leak them themselves. So that seems to be where the situation stands right now, and I feel like with this one, it's always kind of been a weird or interesting one, because on one hand, when you hear a company was hacked, you tend to feel sympathetic for that company, in particular the employees. And now as you're potentially going to start seeing some of that taken or stolen material start leaking out to the public, a lot of the time you would feel bad for the company. But with CD Projekt Red in this case, they have developed a massive amount of bad will from the community. Not only from the actual launch of Cyberpunk 2077, but again from where the game actually stands 6 months later. It's not in a good shape still. And I feel like it really does need to be restated that this leaking out is not a good thing. And I honestly have no idea if anything big will come from this. If any project actually does openly use the source code to, let's say, create a really cool mod, you have to imagine CD Projekt Red, who are typically quite welcoming of that modding scene, will take that down. Now, of course, I'm sure there'll still be stuff on a forum here or a forum there, but as far as openly and massively available, like on Nexus mods, I don't imagine some of that content will stay up for too long. One of the other big questions I have around this is whether or not CD Projekt Red themselves will be forced to issue a statement to shareholders if this actually does leak. And of course, if they actually do that, it will turn this into a much larger news story, in turn getting a lot more eyes on the leaked content itself. But I think there is serious potential that we start seeing some data mines one way or another in the next couple of weeks. I think at the very least that information will start slipping out, which could end up actually spoiling a bit of what we'll likely see at E3. Either way, that's where things stand now. I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below, and with that said, I hope to see you all next time. Later.